So a question that I have not yet been asked, but I feel like people are probably asking themselves is, why are my candy star chains so pricey compared to others? There are people selling candy star chains all over the place. I am not the inventor of candy star chains by any means. I was inspired by many other creators to make my own, and mine do inhabit a bit of a higher price point. So let's talk about why that is. Now, the first big difference are the rings that I use. So on the right, I don't have any that are really of the correct size to go through a pony bead, but I do have some other jump rings here. So jump rings are very thin. Well, most jump rings are, the ones that you can get from craft stores. So this one is a, let me use my brain. It is a higher gauge. The number of the gauge is higher, meaning that the wire is thinner. So these I can actually bend with my hands. Oh, let me drop it real quick. So these I can bend with my hands. Now they can withstand quite a bit of force. They are still metal, but I just don't like using these because especially at a bigger circumference, they get less stable. This is a small jump ring. It's pretty stable because it is so small and it's hard to pull it apart in that way. These are the jump rings that I use instead. So as you can see, this is a thicker gauge. I cannot push this apart with my hands. I'm sure if I really put my back into it, I could, but this is very stable because it has the large circumference and the wire itself is thicker, meaning it is harder to bend. So when you're in the mosh pit, you're jumping around and people are maybe accidentally pulling on your star chain, it's just getting jostled around. There is little to no chance that this thing is gonna get pulled apart by that amount of force. The stars themselves will sooner break than these jump rings that I use. And I also just think that these thicker gauge ones have a much cleaner look to them. I don't know, I think this looks really nice. Now, one alternative that I see some people use, but that I also stray away from, is a split ring. So this is a smaller split ring. I say smaller because usually split rings are quite large. So a split ring is similar to a jump ring if it was coiled up. So here you can see where it's split, I guess. And I don't like using these on stuff that could catch. So this could definitely catch on clothing. It could just get, you know, something lodged in here like this. I just don't find them to be the most stable. I mean, they don't pull apart and they don't warp as easily as a small, thin jump ring, but these still, I'm not a big fan of using them for wearables. The other big difference that I have is the lobster clasps that I use. So on the right is a lobster clasp that I bought in bulk on Amazon. I bought them because the craft store I go to was out of the usual one that I buy, and I thought, wow, I can get the same thing on Amazon. As you can see, it's not the same thing. So this is the one that I got on Amazon for a much, much lower price. I have been using these up for little keychains, charms, things that don't really have as much weight bearing to them, but you can see it's thin. This lever for me is really hard to use. I have kind of big hands, so I worry that people who have mobility issues or have large or stiff hands, because I also have stiff hands due to a medication that I'm on, could really struggle using this tiny lever. It also is just less stable to me. This contact area is really loose, and this wire is also thinner than the one that I typically use. So the one that I typically use, you can see it has a larger lever. I find it's easier for me to get a grip on it. This here is more stable to being pushed and pulled on, just because it's thicker. This part's thicker, this part's thicker. There's still a little mobility here, but it doesn't feel quite as unstable because it is a bigger piece sitting in the hole here, so it doesn't really have as much of that. You want some mobility because it can spin, but that other one, it just feels like it would be jostling around and, you know, wearing itself down a little bit faster. So these probably cost, 10 times as much per unit as these ones do, and I will use these every time for my belt chains. So yeah, for any reason the cost of my belt chains has felt prohibitive or excessive, I hope that this cleared it up. These are actually one of my lower profit items. I need to sell 2 belt chains to get the materials to make 1 more belt chain. That's the margin we're operating on with these. And I like making them and it's quick and I don't mind it having a lower profit margin because they're cute. And I love them. I have my own that I wear. So yeah, I hope that clears some stuff up.